Our first speaker this afternoon is Angela Luna, designer, author, humanitarian, and the founder and creative director for ADIFF, a female-founded design label that that empowers refugees and upcycles traditional waste materials to create clothing and accessories. And some of you may remember her. She was here in 2017. She had that fabulous coat that became a tent. Do you remember that? Yeah, see, you do. And Angela was supposed to be here with us today, but her flight got canceled yesterday. She made a gallant effort to try to find another flight and could not. I think she spent most of the night in the Salt Lake City airport. So she is joining us via Zoom from New York, from her home in New York. So sorry she's not here to talk to you personally. I will try to be a good intermediary. But Angela is speaking today about democratizing fashion, sustainable fashion. I asked her what the last great book was she read, and it's The Vanishing by Britt Bennett. I immediately put it on my to-read list. She also has an 8-month-old Jack Russell Terrier named Benny. So please welcome Angela Luna.
I will say first, I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm excited to still be able to talk to you today. It's clear that we all need to be acting more sustainably with greater intention for environmental and humanitarian issues. We're starting to see the effects of climate change that we've been warned about for years by scientists, between continuous hurricanes slamming the East Coast and raging wildfires in the West. Everyone knows that sustainable fashion is the future, as we are collectively trying to create a landscape of brands that are doing more for the environment. I'm going to apologize. This is an apartment of dogs, which is why I typically don't try to do talks from my apartment. But if you hear crying, they are both, we're trying to make sure that they're not creating chaos. But it's also clear that sustainable and ethical companies, whether in fashion or other industries, come with a higher price tag. My own design label, ADIFF, practices transparent pricing, where we openly display the cost to make our items, from the amount spent on recycled or organic materials to the salaries paid out to our factory staff. We specialize in upcycling, which means taking materials that would normally be discarded or sent to a landfill and using them as the raw material to create something new. When it comes to upcycling, the financial benefits of using discarded materials are immediately offset by the increased labor to make those materials workable, which usually requires additional cleaning, deconstructing, and resewing the fabric to create unique textiles. That said, the ability to buy clothing responsibly and support sustainable brands is out of reach for so many people due to these higher costs. Most incomes make it nearly impossible to consume fashion responsibly, leaving no choice but to purchase the $2 t-shirt and not the $50 t-shirt made from organic cotton in a fair trade factory. While the fashion industry is actively shifting towards being more responsible, we have to ask ourselves, who is it for? We hear the common phrase, especially as it relates to climate change and this pandemic, that we are all in this together. But I have to ask, are we really, when not everyone is able to participate or engage with this industrial shift because the buy-in prices are so unaffordable? Shouldn't everyone be included in this conversation, not just the financially wealthy? Our modern perspective on sustainability is still that of consumerism, focusing on the smaller parts of the problem as something to buy into, but not the greater problem itself. The truth is this: sustainability isn't just about caring for the environment or using organic materials. It's about our relationship with consumption, understanding the value of our items, as well as the how and the why they are being made. Sustainability shouldn't disenfranchise communities based on income. It should be focused on buying less and using more. So how do we correct this issue of consumption within sustainable fashion? and ensure that everyone can participate? And what is the role of the designer? What does this become when the nature of creation is problematic in itself for the environment? Like many other brands, ADIFF is unable to lower the prices of our garments because we pay livable salaries to our factory staff and premiums for our upcycling processes. The only way that we could cut down costs and increase our accessibility would be to relay some of the production to the customer. But how could we ensure that they knew how to make our pieces? And what materials would they use when purchasing fabric isn't an environmentally sound option? This got me thinking. In workshopping this idea, I thought it best to look to other industries and found that there are many parallels between the fashion industry and food. Take fast fashion and fast food. Both are incredibly cheap and accessible, but harmful to the environment and its workers. They're also not meant to last, made on empty calories or with garments deteriorating after only a few washes. Then there's contemporary fashion brands and restaurants, produced from higher quality materials and ingredients, designed to be worn for a lot longer or keeping you full for longer, but unaffordable for many or positioned as something to save up for or buy into. Lastly, there's high fashion and, let's say, Michelin star restaurants. The open source fashion cookbook, my prop for the day, since slides are a little bit more challenging in this setting, is designed to guide you through the creation of designer garments responsive to our modern world using ingredients that you already have in your closet. It democratizes sustainable fashion, enabling all people, especially communities that cannot traditionally afford to shop from responsible brands, to participate in responsible consumption. With detailed recipes, including step-by-step illustrations, the cookbook empowers you to make items at home using what you already have in your closet. Everything from bed sheets to button-down shirts, as well as broken umbrellas and shower curtains. We understand that not everyone is a trained sewer, so we included recipes that can vary from no-sew easy basics to some more complicated and advanced designs. Our focus is really to provide you with the tools necessary to cut the threads of reliance on big brands and learn how to make things for yourself. Similar to when you look through your kitchen to see if you can make a meal using what you already have in your pantry, we encourage you to filter through the back of your closet and utilize anything that you might normally discard. The purpose of this book is truly to use what you already have as the raw material, not needing to rely on finding ingredients in fabric stores in order to create clothing. We also encourage you to take liberties and experiment even further to make these recipes unique. All of these items may be designed by brands, but they're created by you, so make them your own. Just because you know how to cook doesn't mean that you will never dine out at restaurants again. But what it does mean is that you can better understand and appreciate the ingredients, labor, and creativity in the meals that you don't cook for yourself. For example, I rarely get pasta at restaurants unless I know it's made from scratch in-house, because I know I can recreate the same dish at home for a fraction of the cost. and this is Benny the check, Russell. I'm sorry, sir. Sorry, guys. Because I know I can recreate that same dish at home for a fraction of the cost. When dining out, I opt for something I'm less likely to prepare at home, something a little bit more involved. The goal of this book is to encourage the same thought process in fashion consumption. If you understand and appreciate the ingredients, labor, and creativity that goes into making garments, perhaps you can start to question just how any piece of clothing can be sold for $2. Also, just because you know how to sew doesn't mean that you will make everything in your closet, but it definitely changes your relationship with clothing and your reliance on these other companies. The cookbook is just one example of how brands and designers can increase their sustainability efforts in an equitable way. And the craziest thing about it is that it's not new. In building the future of fashion, there is so much to be learned from the past. The concept of making your own garments isn't novel and was common until the end of the 20th century. Before the introduction of fast fashion, creating part of your closet was customary. Of course, you may have some designer or store-bought items, but you filled out the rest of your wardrobe with staples from Simplicity, McCall, or Vogue patterns. Beyond crafting the garments, your relationship with them was also stronger. Pieces were designed to be timeless and built to be repaired. Mending and altering were common, and no item was ever considered disposable. Since then, the industry has created a system of reliance on a capitalistic model that depends on brands for clothing, hiding what's actually going on behind the seams of your garments. It's also important to note that true sustainability goes beyond conscious consumerism to reforming an entire system built on oppression. While sustainability has been rebranded and utilized as a marketing buzzword, true sustainability was originally invented by Black, Indigenous, and POC communities through their practice of extending the lives of their garments before it was reintroduced to consumerist fashion. Greenwashing in fashion is not the only issue as we battle the blatant whitewashing that can come with environmentalism. Despite what you may hear from the marketing departments of sustainable fashion brands, shopping is not the only answer. We should be shopping less and using what we already have, showing an appreciation for the traditional practices of those communities that have already led historic lifestyles. True sustainability cannot exist without inclusivity, because sustainability was never ours to begin with. The most sustainable outfit comes from the clothes that you already have in your closet, and the best thing you can do is use what you have already as long as possible. Take care of your clothing, just as you would nourish your body, and recognize that sustainability is a journey. You just need to start somewhere. It's easy to save money by cooking your favorite restaurant meals at home or start living a healthier lifestyle by changing your eating habits. You can do the same with fashion by shopping less, wearing more, and being creative with what you already have. At the end of the day, we don't need only a few people doing sustainability perfectly. We need a lot of people doing it imperfectly, but trying their best every day. Changing our perspective on consumption and fashion starts at home, and it starts with you. Thank you.
Hi, Angela.
Hi.
So nice to see you.
For the crying puppy.
Are you kidding? Ben's such a dog town. I think everybody loves that. In fact, we have Shandor in the audience, don't we? Yeah, we have a nice little bulldog back here named Shandor. So.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah,
Benny's.
They're much less nice. They're very.
Benny, is Benny a pandemic puppy?
He is.
That's awesome.
The other dog you hear crying is my roommate's pandemic puppy.
Okay. You have a house full. All right. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's so nice to see you. I'm sorry you didn't make it last night, but you really did put in a good effort, which we truly appreciate. And you're home safely and awake and talking to us, which is good.
I know. I apologize if I'm tired. It's not my fault. I got back at like 8 a.m. this morning.
I'm sure. I have no doubt. Multiple flights canceled. So I think I mentioned to you that I recently bought your book and I've been reading it and I love it. It's such especially the essays for me. I mean, I do know how to sew, but I don't do it anymore. I used to sew a lot. I don't now because I just don't have the time. But reading the essays, if anybody wants to get this book, it's really worth reading because it's something that's been in my mind for a long time is how do we make this whole industry of fashion, which many of us really love, but it's so incredibly wasteful. And the economic inequality is so huge. And so, I really appreciate that you kind of came out with this. And I'm wondering, during the last year and throughout, we had so many major shifts in our society throughout the pandemic and the national protests and such. And did this influence your work? Did this influence your thinking in creating this book?
Absolutely. That was actually one of the driving factors. At the beginning of the pandemic, the funny thing is I used to joke like 2020 was going to be our year, like many other small businesses probably had planned. But we had a lot of projects that were put on hold and we were kind of just sitting, all of us, socially distanced, sitting around and trying to think, we don't want to just take this year as a wash. We want to continue to be creative. But we were, I spent most of the summer at the protests trying to bring justice for the Black Lives Matter movement. And I found myself looking a little bit more critically at the fashion industry and the nature of creation, the nature of sustainability in that, I had been practicing upcycling and using waste for the last several years, but trying to bring that to scale, it's really hard to try to take everyone's closets and create something and then give it back to them. You kind of need to have a little bit more of a relationship with the customer themselves. And so I really wanted to tie in as many of the global issues that were going on at the time within the pieces we were designing. I like to call myself a solution-based designer who focuses on global issues and connecting them to the fashion industry. So trying to do that in a way that was, thinking beyond just the product, but also the system of fashion itself. And how disenfranchising sustainable fashion can sometimes be when it comes to price points and accessibility. So it was a lot of different ideas. And the essays at the beginning of the book were really kind of like our chance to kind of preface what we were trying to accomplish with the latter half, which is all of the recipes. And while it is a handbook, it is an educational tool. Of course, we're not expecting everyone to make our entire collection at home, but it'd be nice if you do. If you do, please let me know how it goes. But it's also, just meant to help you understand, all the different aspects that go into the fashion industry.
That's great. Are there ways? I mean, you touched on this some way, but how do we all become better consumers and more intentional consumers? And I think, there are many of us that can kind of figure out some ways, but there's also, your example of the $2 t-shirt. Not everybody can afford the $50 t-shirt. So how do we kind of, one, become better consumers ourselves, and two, help bridge that gap?
Yeah. I would say, the best way to be better consumers is to not consume anything, which is the unfortunate reality. Hold on. Do you mind if I just let out this dog for 1 second so he stops screaming 1 second? It'll be better for everyone. I promise.
Go ahead.
Oh my God, you're making me look bad. Okay, here we go.
We're live, folks, just in case you're wondering.
And now I'm like, I'm hoping there's not going to be sounds of play, but at least
that's okay. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
But yeah, so back to consumerism.
Yeah.
I would say so. I mean, I love to compare fashion to food, and this idea of consumerism also, like, as it relates to fashion in general. I mean, a lot of it is on the parts of the brands. When you go to a restaurant, they don't serve you your food and then wait, now I'm just realizing, I'm so sorry, my computer is about to die. This is not my day. 1 second. I am so sorry.
Yes.
Let me just plug this in. Wow. Oh, okay, we're good. So I would say a lot of it is on the part of the brands. And so, like, when you go to a restaurant, the responsibility of actually cleaning up the dishes, like when you buy the food, you buy the meal. But it's not up to you to go back into the kitchen and take care of the plates and all the leftovers and, all of that. And so for brands to kind of project the issue of, like, what are you supposed to do with your garments when you're done with them onto the customers, it's really kind of masking this issue and trying to put more of it onto the customer than the responsibility of companies themselves with creating these products to begin with. So, yeah, I mean, as a consumer, you can consume less, try to buy pieces or try to thrift pieces, use other, use your friends' closets, try to network within, your community and band together, I would say, to try to stop buying like virgin clothing from a lot of the fast fashion brands. And really, I would say, if you are in a place to invest in timeless pieces that are going to last beyond the trends. The fashion industry is predicated on this model of, like, always needing to buy the next collection. It's ridiculous that we already show the trends for a year and a half from now. And that's kind of the standard that we live in the industry. It's always what's going to be coming next. So the future of sustainable fashion is a lot about disrupting that model entirely.
There are some companies out there, and a lot of them are direct to consumer clothing companies that have buyback programs.
Yes.
And there's that. And then in your book, you also talk about rent the runway example, where you're borrowing things for a period of time. Do you think those fit into this model that you're talking about?
Yeah, I would say the buyback programs are a great example of brands trying to include more circularity within their systems. The one challenge I have with that is making sure that this isn't just like a secondary thought process, like, oh, let's just buy it back. It really starts at conception, and it starts at the design of the product itself. So if you're just taking back product and continuing to make stuff only designed to last a few seasons or whatever, you're really not thinking circularly while you are trying to, like, make the steps to do better. It's basically a larger process. You need to be thinking about the end of life from the first concept of the garment itself and incorporating those pieces that you take back into the production of new collections. And so that's what my brand personally does. And we're trying to do that with other companies as well to incorporate more circularity within their entire concept process. And then Rent the Runway, which is another great example too. But I love Rent the Runway. I'm a fan. But I also just read an article that analyzed the carbon emissions of the shipping of those things, which is something that you wouldn't think about because you're thinking that you're doing so great already for sustainability and fashion. But the washing, the shipping, and all of, like, I guess the energy that comes with collecting garments, sending them out, having them be cleaned. It's amazing because I wouldn't have thought of that in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's true of mail order in general. It has a pretty high carbon footprint that most of us don't want to think about.
Exactly.
So in the past year and a half, many of us have an increased awareness of the social issues that are facing our society, and our individual consumerism is coming up. Do you think that this can lead to industry changes and policy changes?
Yeah.
What is the power of the consumer here?
It is up to the consumer because if everyone just stopped deciding to buy things for a day, it would disrupt the entire economy. So, I mean, it's hard because we're built our society is built on capitalism and consumerism, and it's hard to exist without consuming things in general. But I like to say there's a lot of power in voting with your wallet. Policy, while it is the largest impact that can possibly happen, it takes a lot of time, and so there's a lot of potential that can be done with individual consumer buying choices. So that's what I would say is like think about where your money is going, who you're supporting. Like instead of trying to buy everything from Amazon, try to support small businesses. And really just kind of, it's unfortunate that it takes extra work on your behalf to figure out alternatives to this capitalistic society we live in. But it's definitely worth it in the end, because that's how we can have the largest systemic change.
Mm-hmm. Good. Angela, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate the heroics that you went through yesterday to try to get to us, and congratulations on your new book, and we'll talk to you soon.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I wish I could be there, but thank you.